You're listening to Masonry Principles, your guide to building better buildings, with hosts Amanda Bedian and Phil Leden. Thanks for listening to Masonry Principles. Today we have Jeff Orvis, Senior Supervisor and Operations Manager of Dagostino Building Blocks out of Schenectady, New York. Thanks for being on, Jeff. How's everything going?
Good morning. Thank you for the invite. We appreciate any opportunity we can get to help promote the masonry industry.
Absolutely. And Dagostino is celebrating 100 years. So we thought it would be great to spotlight the company itself. And how did you get to 100 years?
Well, I think with any family-owned business, it's just through hard work and dedication. Each generation has their own spin on how they want to do things, and you just have to work that all into the family principles.
Now, as far as the history of Dagostino, you've always been a block producer, like from the very beginning. Was it always block producer, or was it, how did you start out?
Well, they started out, even though I'm not family, we all here refer to it Grandma and Grandpa Dagostino. They started out in their backyard in the summer and in the basement in the winter, making block at a one-at-a-time hand machine. Oh, wow. With mainly Grandma, while Grandpa was at GE working, but the three boys would make the block all day long, and then again after dinner, I think when Grandpa got home, they'd make some more.
Oh my gosh, I like the origin stories of how everything started. Now, as far as territory, how far of a radius do you cover?
So, we've shipped products all over the country. We make, I don't know if you're familiar with Breeze Block. They're the decorative block that some of them look like flower patterns and some look like diamonds and swirl. They use them for divider walls between privacy areas, that kind of thing. Yeah. We've shipped those all over the country. But our main area is, it's upstate New York, Westchester County, up to Plattsburgh.
Okay. Oh, so you cover a big area.
Yeah, Utica, that kind of territory. But we do go beyond that when the products need to go that far.
And you've been with Dagostino, what was it? You said 34 years?
I've been for 35 plus years here, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So as far as the industry, like from where you started to where you are, how would you describe it?
As far as how Dagostino fits in?
Dagostino or masonry in general, the block industry. Like, I know there's been lots of changes, but being a part of it for so long, I'm sure you've seen the ebbs and flows. So how would you sum up masonry as a whole in the last 35 plus years?
So masonry is kind of declining as far as competitive building material. I remember back when we were supplying all the architectural block for all the malls. We did the Rotterdam Square Mall and Wilton Mall, and all these huge malls were going on. And, we were supplying, loads after loads after loads of architectural masonry. And those, they're not building those anymore. Crossgates Mall, we did work at all of those large projects. So the fight is, steel studs, wood stud, wood framing, some of these veneers that can be applied by a carpenter rather than a mason. All of those things have affected our industry. So we've had to branch out into segmental retaining walls, concrete pavers, and those kind of things to kind of expand our market.
Jeff, I have a quick question on that. So, you said you started with just a one at a time, just a hand held block machine, right? Can you tell us how many block you produce annually now? We don't need to get into specifics of cavities or anything like that, but do you have any idea what your market has grown to at its peak, and where are we now?
Well, we've always had, since we, went automated, got away from that one at a time hand machine, we've manufactured three 8-inch equivalents per cycle.
Yep. 3 at a time.
Yeah. For all of my time here, at least. Okay. And in 2017, we put in a new Besser machine that, we still do 3 at a time. Depending on what you're making can affect how much you make per day, and per cycle and that kind of thing. So as far as the industry goes, I think that because we've supplemented with segmental retaining walls, concrete pavers, and different creative veneers, we've been able to keep running at full capacity. Where if we relied strictly on architectural block or just regular CMUs, we'd be struggling to run at that capacity.
Okay, yeah. So with a 3 at a time machine, because most of our producers in Michigan also have 3 at a time machines. We do have some producers throughout the country that have 4 at a time machines or kind of larger format machines. And, I never really understood the applicability of it, but I was on a job site on Friday where they were using 12 by 32 inch block because that contractor happened to have some mules. And so, I mean, do you think the future of the industry, I know you'd mentioned malls, things like that. Do you think that we've been declining because of the type of buildings that are being built because we're not building those malls and things anymore, or is it just increased competitiveness with other materials? I mean, I guess we all know the masonry market's declined to where we are today, but I guess why, from your perspective?
I think there's a combination of things. There's some of it is a misconception as far as the final cost of a building. I'm sure that both you and Amanda have looked at numbers of putting up a building, a masonry building, and tried to convince people that, hey, it's really economical to build with masonry. It's more economical than people believe. And the speed of construction is also a comment that I hear that masonry takes a long time and so on. But I don't see where those two things are good arguments from my end because I can see a lot of masons on a job site putting up a large wall that's insulated, and like for example, the high R or high RH products that are pre-insulated, and you can grout those things solid. So you can put up a warehouse building rather quickly with that type of unit. So there's some misconceptions out there, and I think it's hard to get these developers to understand that masonry it's economical, it's fast enough, and it's sustainable.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I mean, especially for the high R and high RH or any of those sort of proprietary energy units, I guess we'll call them. I mean, we do have Fent products here in Michigan that is a member of CPG, and they produce the high R and the high RH. We also represent Omni Block and a few of the other producers of those units. But I think what that's really leveraging is bringing back the single wide market that, I mean, we just quite frankly lost because of energy issues, especially in the northern part of the country. With a single wide wall, you get the durability and resilience of that wall system, but you're only putting up one wall and you get the beauty on the outside. You don't have to come back and put up, another veneer on top of that. Can you talk a little bit about the single wide market? I guess, do you see it coming back? I mean, how are the high R, high RH, how is CPG doing? I mean, do you see more architects using those type of products?
One of the reasons that after we were invited to join CPG, one of the reasons that we decided to move ahead with that was for this type of product, right? The high R, high RH for the single wide market. I mean, there's a lot of warehouse construction that's going up all over the country. And CPG members in other parts of the United States have been doing very well with these two products. And I think that it's something that once you show somebody the calculations for the thermal values and so on, that they can actually build these buildings more economically than trying to put up these steel studs and have a building that's constantly dented because everybody runs into them with a fork.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I did a presentation last year on these newer types of units. And if you look at high R, high RH, or even some of the other units that are out there, not only do they perform exceptionally well in terms of energy performance, but structurally, we can get really good capacity structurally. And even in terms of fire resistance ratings, all the units I looked at actually performed better than just a conventional C90 unit in terms of fire rating. And so, I mean, I think a lot of the questions are very easily answered with those units. I just, especially in the northern part of our country, just with our climate zones, I think just kind of getting over that hump of the energy code with the architects and getting them just to a comfort zone is just hugely important. But we are seeing a better trend, at least in Michigan, with those units. And so that's good to hear. That's in New York as well.
We were able to provide some of the high RH units for a local school project where we had CPG spec guys get on the phone with them and walk through the energy codes and show them that we could use the high RH in this was a 12-inch and still meet the energy code that they needed to meet. And we did it with an architectural finish. We do that shot blast finish. So it was done. They picked their color. We made the block, shot blast, laid it up, grouted the whole thing solid, and it all met the energy code, and it was fast.
Do you see that architects, like, are you getting more phone calls in regards to this block? Are they getting more comfortable designing with it? Or what could be done to promote it more, or not just the high R or high RH, but block in general to the architects and engineers?
And I think it takes people like the three of us to get out there and show everybody, how masonry works and that it is a viable product, just like we did with that school with the local architect. CPG has companies all over the United States. So when we talk about, you had mentioned a proprietary product with high RH, and it's not really proprietary in a sense because you could go to Barnes and Cone in Syracuse, for example, and get the same thing that I make. You could go to Jandris in Massachusetts and get the same thing. You could go to Fasano in Philadelphia or Barasso in Long Island. So there is competition for these products, but you can still source them locally and have a lot of different variations in finish, ground face, split face, shot blast, colored smooth face. So all those things are available. In addition to the other products that we make through CPG, which is like Quick Brick, and you mentioned the Aubrey, all those things we're hoping will help kind of move masonry back to where it used to be.
And I think CPG, I have talked with Bill Dawson, and I have a really good relationship with them as well. And I think one of their biggest strengths, and one of the things I applaud them most on, is their resources. If you go to the CPG website, they have a full detailing manual that's 100 pages long and shows the architects and, more importantly, the contractors how to actually build a wall with those units. I mean, you think about corners, different bond patterns, things like that. I think they've done a really good job and making it as simple as it can be and kind of as digestible as it can be. So I mean, I always do refer people to their resources because I think, that's really important. In terms of the school, and something, I think that not necessarily CPG, but as a masonry industry, we can do better. I mean, have you written any articles or how have you publicized that school? I mean, how can we take that one project and turn it into the next school, going single life masonry? And I think that's something that as an industry we're really struggling with.
Right. I know that CPG has weekly webinars that are, you can get your AIA credits, and they make them as generic as possible, right? So that you can still get the AIA credit for that. But they're every week they've got a webinar that they're doing trying to promote the industry. And we had joined CPG right before COVID hit, so we weren't able to get out because everybody closed their offices. We weren't able to get out and go see all the architects and promote the way that we wanted to with some of these new products. Now that some of that stuff is letting up, we have more architects wanting to see what we have and actually see people in their office. Whereas before, for the past 2 years, it was taboo to go to somebody's office and knock on their door.
As far as Dagostino, so when an architect's looking to design a building and they give you a call to see, what kind of questions do you get from the architect?
Um, I guess to get the full array, usually what starts out with them is colors and textures.
Hmm.
So they may have a certain color pattern in mind, and they'll come to us, and we have our own lab here.
Oh, wow.
And in the lab, we have hundreds and hundreds of different colors of samples that we've manufactured for previous jobs. we don't have just like a box of 12 colors and you pick one, and if it's not in there, oh well.
Right.
We have to make the block for every job, whether it was off a standard palette or if it was a custom color. So it doesn't really matter. We're able to manufacture small scale samples in our lab as a representative of what the actual production units would be. So they may come in with some aluminum trim or some shingles or whatever it may be, some other colors that they have. We'll go through the lab and we'll pick some complementary colors or textures, and we start the selection process from there. So that's on the architectural end.
So as far as when you were talking, I know it brought up like locally sourced and we were talking radius, like what is the turnaround time if we're just talking straight CMU structural block? Because we all talk schedules as a benefit to masonry. What is the realistic schedule if you're doing just a typical single wide building and the turnaround on Phil, how many square feet? Give me an example.
Yeah, I guess I mean, so just as a background, I mean, in Michigan, we're probably somewhere about 30 million block a year, but I think realistically that's probably about 50 to 60% of our production capacity. We can make a lot more block than we currently do with the producers that we have. So in Michigan, I mean, our turnaround time for gray block is tomorrow. If you need it,
Right.
we can have it there tomorrow. But I guess in terms of the high R, I mean, I would think that if an architect is going single wife, they're not just going gray block in many cases. They're looking for a split face or an integral color.
Mhm.
And so I guess how does that affect schedule would be my first question. My second question is it's good that architects are asking questions because the scariest thing to me is when people don't ask questions. But are they sole sourcing projects to high R and high RH, or are you listed in a spec along with some other manufacturers? How does that process kind of work?
So as far as the turnaround time, when we make a high RH unit, we have to order the insulation inserts and stuff. So we can't do anything until everything's been approved. Unlike gray units that are sitting on the ground, right? We have to go through the approval process, get everything done. And then we order the inserts, and depending on the color they select, get the aggregates in here and then put it in production schedule. So obviously, if we're in the heat of our season, June or July, that lead time might be a little bit longer than it would be in January or February. And it's hard to say. Sometimes it fits our schedule and we can turn it around in 4 weeks. Other times it may not, because we're waiting on other things, and it may take longer than that.
So, like, would you say in a slow season for specifically the high R, high RH, you're talking like a 4 week plus schedule time?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just curious. I wasn't sure, like you said, gray block, you could have it tomorrow. But when you start talking the architectural design and getting custom colors and all that, obviously it takes time.
right.
So CPG is obviously their own group, and then you're a part of that. So are you D'Agostino and the people that signed on with CPG with their products? Who's pushing the product out? Who's introducing this to the market of AE world?
So it's everybody. So it's all the producers that are members, plus it's the CPG staff with
Okay.
Bill and Corey and Bill's daughter. They're out there. They're pushing it, but it's mainly the producers that reach out to the local architects. And then if we have something that gets more technical than we can answer quickly, we can get Corey or Bill involved, and they can get them the information they're looking for. We also have David Biggs. I'm sure that the two of you are familiar with him.
Oh yeah.
David Biggs has done a lot of work with us, and the manual that we have, or the design manual that we have. Dave was instrumental in putting that together. He's worked on a lot of different other projects for us. So we brought Dave Biggs on because I think he is number one in his industry, throughout the United States. I know he's traveled all over the world
Hmm.
looking at different types of masonry and masonry restoration for some historic projects and stuff. So he comes with a lot of quality information and a lot of knowledge.
Oh, absolutely.
The question I would have too, Jeff, is I mean, so as an institute, I mean, we do a lot of webinars on meeting the energy code with single lath masonry, and I think our producers have been very active. So I guess I just want to thank you and Fent here in Michigan, for all that you do to help this move forward. Because I mean, I think kind of back to where we were at the start of the call. I mean, we've all accepted that the masonry industry isn't where it was, and I mean, it's going to take all of us to get back to where we need to be.
Right. I think we're excited about the new checkoff program for masonry that is going to provide funds for a lot of this, and not just marketing, but the educational tools and stuff, so that we can get masonry back in to some of these buildings where it should be. I was looking the other day, and there was another apartment building under construction, wood frame, and it was all burning. And they show it the next day, and at each end of this building is the masonry stairwells.
Right.
That alone should be telling people that they need to look at masonry for these projects because it's safer.
Right. It's just getting in the hands of the architect. What do you think it is, and with your 35 years of experience, why the pushback from the architects in designing with just gray block, just CMU, using it as a structural material?
I think it comes from the developers. I think it comes from the construction managers. A lot of these guys look at these jobs, and they're looking at trying to look at the speed of construction, and they believe that the steel studs and everything are faster. Because we just mentioned that 6 weeks, 4 weeks lead time for some of these special units, and they say, well, we can't wait that long. Well, you can, because the minute the mason contractor is awarded the project, he can be placing his order long before the footings and foundations and everything else are done. We can have the masonry on the site.
And I think one of our biggest advantages too, and I mean, in Michigan, we've been very, very successful in converting jobs to masonry, and we do hear about that a lot in terms of schedule, where people see precast panels go up in a week, and they think that they are that much better in terms of schedule. And I always tell the CEBs, I mean, just get us a footing in the ground. We can start laying block 24 hours, 32 hours, 48 hours after that footing's in the ground. And we don't have a big complex detailing and fabrication method. I mean, if the block's there, we can start laying it. And so I think a lot of it's misconception, really more than anything. Because I mean, if you look at the turnaround time on shop drawings for precast panels, the design, all those sorts of things, I mean, masonry does have a huge competitive advantage in terms of schedule, but just most people only physically see what's going on the site. They don't see everything it took to get there.
Right.
Well, here we are celebrating 100 years with Dagostino, and you made it out of, I mean, what were some of the history? We've come out of depression, recession, COVID, economic crisis. I mean, you guys have come such a long way.
Well, sure. They've been through world wars and Vietnam and all those kind of crises. I know that the late Ken Sr. was a Marine, and the late Larry D'Agostino Sr., he was, I believe, in the Army. He was over in Guam.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I mean, they had to do their duties that way also. So that's what the family business does. They figure out how to get through it and keep going.
Absolutely. Well, cheers to you and congratulations to D'Agostino on celebrating 100 years. And I hope you have 100 more ahead of you. Thank you so much for being on this episode. And if you enjoyed what you're listening to, you can listen to other episodes on masonryprinciples.com or Google, Spotify, and Apple Music. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Masonry Principles. To continue the conversation, be sure to reach out to us by visiting masonryprinciples.com.